Hey, welcome back everyone. Today we're continuing our outdoor project here and building this privacy fence. It's just a pretty simple fence. It's just like a one-side fence to give us some privacy from the road. So let me show you how I did it. Okay, so here's what I used for the project. So for materials, I used ground contact rated 4x4 post, and some scrap pieces of wood and nails to brace them while the concrete cures, pressure treated 2x4 lumber for the rails, a combination of 8-foot and 6-foot pressure treated 1x6 pickets, and concrete for the post. To attach the rails and pickets, I'm using some stainless steel screws. Now, I tend to prefer using screws over nails, but either way is fine as long as they are rated for treated lumber. And the length of the screws, I'm using the 3-inch screws for the rails and 1 5/8-inch screws for the pickets. Okay, now for tools. You need post hole diggers, or if you have access to an auger, that would work probably even better, but post hole diggers is what I have. And you also need a saw, a drill, a container to mix concrete in, a level, some clamps, a hammer, stakes and string, a measuring tape, and a pin. And of course, all related to PPE, such as like hearing and eye protection, you definitely want to make sure you have that on hand. So before we start digging the holes and buying materials, we need to get a rough estimate of the measurements and the layout. And the length I'm going to be making this fence is 24 feet, so I'm putting stakes in the ground right here for the post locations, which each need to be between 6 and 10 feet apart, so I went with 8 feet. I'm also using some string to get things lined up properly along here. Now with that done, I'm ready to begin digging the holes for the post, which I'm digging it down about 28 inches to make sure it's below the frost line for my area. And once they're dug, I poured a little bit of concrete in the bottom for the footer. So I'm setting up the 2 end posts first and making sure that they're level, and I'm also running 2 strings between them to try to get them as close as even as I could. And now just doing the rest of the posts in a similar way, making sure that they're level and even with each other. And with that done, I added concrete all the way up till it's above the ground. And I also have the concrete sloped away from the post so water will run away from it. Now I also wanted to get the posts all cut at the same height. So I'm running a string across them at the height that I want, which was the height of the shortest posts that I have. And I used a Sawzall to cut them. So next I measured and cut the rails. And you also need to keep in mind that the rails will need to meet in the middle of the post. And I pre-drilled the holes, and I got the screws to go ahead already started in there. And I used a nail to hold the rail up on one end, but in hindsight, clamps would probably be much better to do that. But that will hold it in place so you can get things leveled up real good and screwed into the post. So now I'm working on getting the pickets lined up. The ground is higher on one end of the fence than the other, so I'm using 2 different length pickets. So I started with leveling the shorter one on the end, and also the first tall picket setting up where they'll be a couple inches from the ground. And finally I leveled the end with the taller picket on the end with the other 2. So now for the most time consuming part, I'm going to be attaching the pickets to the rails. Now I'm using 2 screws per rail. So I put the 2 ends up first, with the side I'm starting on being screwed in, and the other end is just a clamp to the rail. And I ran a string along the top of them to serve as a guide for the rest of the pickets. So as I go along attaching the pickets, I'm using clamps to hold them in place. However, I'm leaving the clamps just loose enough that will allow them to move when I tap it with a hammer. That way I can get it fine-tuned and where they'll be level with each other. And along with the string, I'm using a level to make sure that they're level to the adjacent pickets. Now, I'm not wanting to do any cutting on the pickets, so there will be a gap on the ground where the pickets transition. But a future landscaping project I'll do will take care of that though. And now that's everything to it. And now here's the end result with some before and after shots. And so I really like how this turned out. I think it looks really good. And eventually in the future I'll probably will stain it a different color. But for now, I kind of like the the natural color of the wood that it already is. And this whole project, it would take probably about two full days of work. One day setting up the posts and getting everything laid out, and the next day, after the concrete's secured, to be able to put the rails and the pickets on. So now for the cost breakdown. The posts were $54. The concrete came to $30. And the 2x4s for the rails came to $47. The pickets came to $150. But with the screws were $40, but there is some left over that can be used on a future project. And all this comes to a grand total of $320. So thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful or informative or entertaining, please consider giving it a like. And on our next project we'll be building a smokeless fire pit. So if you're interested in that, subscribe to be able to stay up to date on that. And until next time, later.